How you doing, guys? Today we're going to work on the front spindles. Specifically, what I'm hoping to do today is to have this lower piece made. Obviously drilled for the cotter pin, threaded 3/4 16 for the castle nut, cut off, faced off, everything to size. One of the things I'm going to show you is wheel horse on the early machines like the RJs and obviously the seniors. See, there's a little dimple right here at the end of the bar stock. That's where they must have cut these off on a lathe with a cut-off tool, got into a certain point, and then just broke off the 3/4 inch piece of bar. So we're going to recreate that also. So this whole piece, barring the washer at this point in time, this whole piece should be made by the end of the video. Hopefully it'll all work out. I'm going to make two of them, one for the right and one for the left. So let's head on over there and get to work. I was hoping to show you more of the machining process of the lower section of the spindle, but my buddy's shop was pretty busy and I was kind of in their way, so I really couldn't video too much. I had to kind of move along the process fairly quick. Basically, I had a 3/4 inch piece of bar stock. I faced off both ends, drilled for the cotter pins, then threaded them the appropriate amount. Ultimately, I took a cutoff tool and chopped the ends of the bar stock off in order to make it the right dimension or the correct dimension from here to here. One thing I did try to do is, if you notice on the original, there is, let's just turn right there. You see there's a little nub in this. Let me try to get this thing to focus for you. There is a nub, maybe if I move my finger. Yes, there's a nub right in the center. Essentially what I believe, and I don't know this for 100%, Wheel Horse used a cutoff tool just like I did in order to cut the bar stock off, and then they basically just let it snap off. I tried to recreate those little nubs at the ends of my axle ends, so that way when I weld it together, you will have those little nubs just like the factory. You also found those little nubs, if I haven't said it already, I apologize, RJ35s. So basically that must have been their production style at that point in time. These two I quickly put this spindle in this position. I screwed down some angle iron that I found in my lower box there. It seems as if I got the angle correct. I'm spaced. This is 1 inch bar stock. This is 3/4. So I needed to space the lower bar 1/8 of an inch in order to get it in the center of the 1 inch bar, because the 1 inch bar is sitting flat on the wood. These two washers are actually what I'm going to use for this washer right here. But they just happen to be 1/8 of an inch. So I slid them in underneath the piece of bar stock, and then because this thing is screwed to the table, I went ahead and clamped it into place, so now it doesn't move. With that, I am happy with my jig, so to speak. But before I go ahead and weld this or tack weld it together, I do need to make the top portion of this bar the correct length. Now, this is not the correct length because I had to cut it with a hacksaw in order to get it out of the front bar. So in order to do that, what I'm going to need to do is install the bushings in the crossbar, so that way I could take various measurements here, and then see how far this protrudes above the crossbar right over there. And I'm going to have to put one of the ends on, so that way I can see where or how much I need to trim off. It should be about 1 inch to 3/4 to 1 inch. And ultimately what I'll do is I'll take it to my buddy's shop again, face off one end, then cut at my mark, and then face to the mark. So that way we have these at the appropriate length. Also, if we take a look at the top bar or the top pieces, they were originally, there it is. They were originally drilled for a 1/4 inch roll pin. Now, this one is good. This one's all blown out. So I'm going to measure it up. I'll probably end up doing a 5/16 roll pin in this one, and probably a 1/4 inch roll pin just like the original. But I do need to get the bars to size and then figure out where that hole needs to be. Once we do that, we'll come back, we'll get this thing all lined up with the appropriate degree, meaning this bar compared to the hole. We'll get that all set, we'll tack weld it all together, we'll put it in the bar, into the front end, and make sure that we got it exactly where we want it. Now, that was a lot, but it should go fairly quick once we get those things set. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to prep all this stuff up. I'm going to put the bushings in that top piece, and then we'll see how everything fits together. We may have to hone those bushings a little bit in order to get this 1-inch piece of bar stock in them. I'm test fitting these bushings to make sure that they're going to fit. Now they're the correct size. They're 1 inch inner diameter, 1 1/8 outer diameter. I just started to press them in just with my hand, and they're going in and they're tightening up just as I would want them to. One thing I would suggest is when you're doing this test fit, don't just ram these things in the first time. Get them started, see how they're going to fit. Sometimes they won't go in at all. Sometimes they'll start sliding in and eventually get a little tighter. You're going to definitely want to sand the insides of these just a hair, just to get rid of any burrs or anything to that effect. Same with the outside, so that way you know you have a good solid press. Now these are going in fairly easily, so I will just probably start off with a rubber mallet and just kind of tap them in real lightly until they're flush with the bottom of this pipe. In other cases, I will put it in the press, line it up, and then just press them in. I don't know exactly which way I'm going to do this right now. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm leaning more to just use the press and just put a socket on the top of it and push it in. Once they're in, the next thing to do would be to test fit one of the 1-inch bar stocks in it to make sure that it will slide completely up into that tube and everything just kind of fits nice. We may have to break out the brake hone and just hone the bushings a little bit in order to get them to line up perfectly, but we'll find out as soon as they're installed. With the bushings installed, I have found a couple little issues that need to be addressed first before I can move forward actually. Number one, this bushing out of the 4, the one up here, one down there, one down here. This one here doesn't really press into the pipe very well, so I'm going to have to take it back out and probably peen in a couple spots the steel tube and then press this back in, so that way there's a little bit more grip. The other issue that I'm having is this, which must have been, I don't know how this could have happened, but if we look inside the bushing, you can see that the 1-inch bar stock that I have, this piece here that's coming up through the bushing on the bottom, it doesn't line up very well with the top bushing. You can actually see on the top edge here some gap, and that's because it's actually hitting the bottom edge of the bushing, and there's no way to force this 1-inch bar through the bushing. And the reason for that is this tube that runs down here is actually a little tweaked. Like right about here, it bends. And it bends just a hair. And that's from that, because this is the front side of the axle. That's from years of the wheel taking shocks. Now with the old spindle in place, it just basically wore the spindle out. There's a ridge here, there's a ridge here. And obviously the original bushings, they all got, worn in. So what I'm thinking I'm going to have to do here to fix this, so I'm going to have to make a cut somewhere, I don't know, I'll figure that out. I don't know exactly where, but I'm going to have to make a cut here almost all the way through the pipe. I'll heat it up with a torch. I'll tweak it a little bit to get the bar stock to go through the bushings, okay? And then I'll just weld the back side of the pipe and basically just straighten that out. And then ultimately get the brake hone, which I bought a new one. Where did I put it? There it is, right here. I bought a new little brake hone. And then I'll hone the bushings so this 1-inch bar stock goes in nice and smooth. Now, I don't know if I'm going to need to do the same thing here with this pipe on the basis that the bushings are so tight. Trying to get the 1-inch bar stock in, I literally can't do it. It binds up. So I'm going to have to hone this, one of the bushings, either the top one or the bottom one, first in order to get the bar stock in. I'll find out whether or not it's even going to be close to lining up to the bushing, I may have to make another slice, bend the pipe straight, re-weld it, smooth it out, and you'll never know. But that is what I'm looking at right now. I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this thing out of the vise, really take a look at this pipe and confirm that it is tweaked a little bit. And if it is, where I think it's going to be best to make the slice, bend it straight, and then ultimately re-weld it back together. I was going to do some sort of measuring just to see if I can measure, through measurements I can see if it's tweaked. But even before I started, you almost don't even need to measure, because you can see right there the tube comes down, and then right about there it wings up. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make my cut right here and straighten this pipe out so the two bushings align with the bar stock. And then what I'll do is I'll tack weld that back together once I got it all, loosely situated. But for this one, that's exactly what I'm going to have to do, and it doesn't appear as if I have much of a choice. So let's get to cutting. With the slice, as you can see, I got the bar stock all the way through, and you can also see how much this needed to be, straightened out. It is visually straight. This bar stock does spin in the bushings. It's really tight, but at least it tells me that they're lined up enough where, and I didn't have to hammer this in. I just had to I had to give it a little bit of a tap just to bend it down, and then just lightly tap it with the dead blow hammer until it all kind of lined up. Now this is too tight for the steering at this moment in time, but it'll allow me to line this up. And I'm going to just go ahead and tack weld it like right here. Put a real good tack on it just to make sure that it's secure. Then I'll hone the bushings, get this bar stock to go in and out real nice and smooth. We'll have like a little bit of resistance, but not as much resistance as I have right now. And then I'll go ahead and finish weld it off. So after some honing and a little bit of sanding on the bushings on this particular side, everything is all set. What I did was I tack welded it together, as I said. I then took my piece of bar stock, put it in the holes, or I should say put it in the bushings, and I honed it so it would fit. Then I went in and actually finish welded all the way around the cut that I made. That did tweak the pipe a hair, so I had to re-hone the bushings and sand the bushings a little bit. But now, when I take my brand new piece of bar stock and line it up and slide it up into the bushings, they pretty much, there you go. It pretty much goes right into place without any problems. It spins fairly easy. I mean, this is dry, so once I get some grease in there and lubricate that, that should function just perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and just finish up, make sure those bushings are lined up fairly well, finish weld in the pipe itself, hone them, get it to fit about as equally as this, and then the front end itself, or the heavy duty part of the front end, is done. Now, this pipe is a little bit crooked. You can see how it goes like this. That's from being, hit over the years. I'm not going to get involved with straightening that out. I'm going to leave that alone. It's all underneath the frame. You're never going to know. And two, wow, what a pain in the neck it would be to probably try to fix that in general. So I'm just going to leave that alone. At least for right now, that's my thought process. I'm going to go ahead and finish that up. In the next video, we should be this should be finished, and we should be discussing on finishing up the spindles themselves. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all your support. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you could. And if you would like, please leave a comment below. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.